Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to this Patrons video today that I'm making for Eli as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we got ourselves a track from an ex named Jamiroquai titled Space Cowboy off of the Return of the Space Cowboy album. Got that art up there on the screen. I haven't listened to much Jamiroquai, but I'm keen to check out more. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it.
Everything is good and round. I'm here again with a sunshine smile upon my face, my friends. A close at hand, and all my inhibitions have disappeared without a trace. I'm glad, oh, that I found somebody who I can rely on.
The keys are so pleasant the way.
At the Space Cowboy, at the planet every good vibe zone. Say at the speed of cheaper, you and not gone deeper. Maybe I'm gonna have to get high just to get by.
The bass as well.
Now you know I got that cheaper kind of Space Cowboy vibe. Everything is good. I am green. Say I'm red again. And I don't suppose I'm coming down. I can see clearly. So high in the sky. A man with psychedelic patch of friends. I've happiness to share his eyes. He's glad. Oh, that I found somebody who he can rely on. This is the
Falsetto or mixed voice?
at the Space Cowboy, at the planet every good vibe zone. Say, in the speed of cheaper, and we're gone deeper. You and I, hey, oh, now this is the return of the Space Cowboy. He's got that interplanetary good vibe zone.
Got a kind of graininess to the bass tone as well. That kind of makes it a bit more kind of earthy.
Good times, hot times, good vibes. Hey, oh, I like what you're doing on there. Yeah. This time,
Interesting percussive in the breaths. It's a fun idea.
now this is the return of the Space Cowboy. Interplanetary, interplanetary good vibe zone. In the speed of cheaper, oh, you and I go deeper. Hey, maybe I'm gonna have to get high this time. This is the return of the Space Cowboy. Interplanetary good vibe zone. Say, in the speed of cheaper, I'm welcome deeper. You and I, 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 you and I. Hey, welcome deeper, yeah. Welcome deeper, yeah. Welcome deeper, yeah.
Kind of makes you know what we're going to do with the rest of it. Is there a phaser on those hi-hats?
Now this is the return of the Space Cowboy. Good times, hot times, good vibes. Oh, interplanetary good vibes. I know where it's coming from.
hi-hat technique is exquisite, dude.
On this interplanetary level.
Oh, again. Praise the vocals right there. It's kind of an I do like the use of the spacey synths, especially kind of rising up at the end, like the UFO is going away for a bit. I do like the imagery there. Relatively minimalist in its approach, though, outside of that, especially for a 6-minute 30 track, but we're going to talk about it more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Jamiroquai, titled Space Cowboy, off of the Return of the Space Cowboy album remastered there. In this section, I'm going to provide an overall song analysis for everything from lyrics and vocals all the way through to studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally, my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? I picked this track as being about the vibe, the expression, the ambience, atmosphere of being a space cowboy, going on interstellar journeys and adventures together. And it's more about I suppose given the album has like Light Years and Mr. Moon and stuff like that, potentially it's more of a representation of they go through this journey throughout the album and then they're coming back at the end for this track there, kind of coming down to earth, or maybe they're coming back into space. I'm not quite sure. You get the feeling that regardless of how we're approaching it, especially when it kind of becomes a bit more sort of like low-key towards the end of the piece there before it comes back up again, that effectively Jamiroquai is inviting someone to go along on that journey with them to sort of explore things and have just good vibes throughout the place. And overall, I think that the vocal performance kind of supports that precedent. I think effectively his performance is quite comfortable. He is sort of like really solid head and chest voice with a bit of falsetto, occasionally vibrato, some interesting legato passages, kind of like a breathing. Then he does like a percussive element in certain parts that works well as a 16th note tangent alongside a lot of the other percussive elements. The bass and the drums are phenomenal. But we also kind of a bit of vocal fry occasionally, a roar that comes in just at the right point, and we do riff off of the track. We're fairly comfortable and confident with the aesthetic that were created here, but I don't think it ever feels overplayed. I am glad that there is an additional lead section near the end of the track and that solo part with those keys there, the kind of way they kind of flange and kind of squeak and oscillate in and out of the LFO. I'm glad that we have that with the portamento layer on it, as I feel like if we'd not had as much decoration on that last go of the chorus, it might have been a little bit bland. It's just because at a 6-minute something track, you know, you appreciate the way it sounds, and for like an overall sort of like theme motif and instrumental production perspective, just it's a solid track. You know, the concept itself works. Now, I think that the instrumental textures typically niche well with each other and form a great sort of like experience for the listener. It's just, yeah, at 6.5 minutes long, outside of a really competent vocal performance, it was some spoken and sung parts there. It's a long time, but we flesh it out with verses and choruses and instrumental components there, such as the drums, which are phenomenal. There's just such a versatility and diversity of different sort of like quarter eighth, 16 triplet, and 32nd note grooves. The work on the hi-hat specifically is tremendous. We do have some really interesting tom fills and transitions as well, but it's just the flurry, the meter, the the cadence that we approach things, as well as the finesse in that low key section near the end where things go really quietly on the kit, that we managed to maintain a dynamic range and stuff in a way that's very sort of like positive. The bass playing as well is tremendous. Like, we're not just tight on the percussion, the bass player explores their entire fretboard, it seems like. It's very colorful, and ultimately I think because of the layering being keys, synth, bass, and drums for the most part on top of the vocals, you have room for the bass to be a bit more explorative and kind of go up into that mid-range there where the guitar might typically sit. So we have kind of a percussive feel to that too, where it dances around those quarters, eighths, and sixteenths with an interesting kind of movement of mutes and like hammer-ons and pull-offs and perky little bits there. And I like that we're comfortable with our own beats and syncopated with that halftime groove. It's wonderful bass performance, incredibly tight, it's incredibly complicated, but they handle their bass and drums within this track, and they niche quite well with the vocals. I think the keys that you have on the side there are wonderfully charming and colorful there. They play these extensions and occasional chromatics or made like parallels potentially that kind of like simmer and seg nichely between each other. You don't have all the different layers all the time, but when that flavor does come in the mid-range, it's a nice accompaniment to what's going in the lower end with the bass and drums. And the synths that you have kind of ruminating on the side there, oscillating more gently at the start and becoming a bit more sort of forward near the end with that solo section, which is just great again to sort of explore it, because you're already so familiar with what Jamiroquai is doing on a mic at that point that you can kind of pay attention to that and enjoy the culmination of things. You're not being distracted, especially with it being the return, the big finale there. Ultimately, that's just a nice additional layer in the upper end. And I think it's also interesting how the panning occurs there, where it's kind of on the side of the stereo field, though, and a bit asymmetrical in parts. Honestly, the music surrounds you in the headphones, though. The layers don't interfere or interact with each other in a way that is kind of confusing or disingenuous. Thematically, the track relies on a major, I think it's like 7th oriented. It could be like it's an extended, though. It's not a super blunt, happy or sad track. It's just meant to be more sort of chill. That's not just with the textures that are used. It's because of the complication, the emotional sophistication from the extended notes that we have within these harmonies here throughout this piece there, and the way that the bass explores those and represents and sort of like frequents some of those parts as well. Honestly, it's just really colorful, but in the best possible way. And I think that if we'd had the instrumental components any busier than they were, it would have been a bit overwhelming. It's kind of ironically neutral enough because of the consistency of the extensions that Jamiroquai can kind of do whatever they want to for the most part on top without being too sort of like much. And I think as well, just to be fair, some of the percussive breathing parts as well are a nice sort of rhythmic texture that is not going to sort of compete for attention with that or confuse things. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering. I do like the dynamic range of this recording. It's not too over-compressed, both from a composition and production perspective. I dig the fact that there's room for the vocals, bass, drums, keys, and synths to breathe there, as well as the filtering, the kind of flanging on the hi-hats there that we had as well. The way they simmer was fantastic. There's a nice punch and pep to the snares, kicks, and toms as well. A great recording. You can just hear that the bass and drums are nice and tight recorded in a room together. And ultimately, the vocals have a great presence in the mix as well, not overproduced. Relatively, they're not too sort of saturated there. They maintain a sense of distinction there without being too extra. And ultimately, yeah, nice and loud, but a pumping bus compression limiting is handled, and I don't have any issues with the post side of things. It's commercial grade. No applicable constructive critique for me. Just from a general final listener's perspective, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a fan of Jamiroquai's work, but I can appreciate both the musicality and the direction that we're going within it. I think that for people who like this kind of music, they're going to love it, in the sense that, like, if you're looking for more something with a kind of ambience that's kind of relaxing and chill and friendly to listen to, you've got it here. It's great. It's very positive and upbeat without being too much, without being too effervescent. And I can understand why people like it. I think in general, especially in regards to technical proficiency, the drummers, bassists, etc., as well as how Jamiroquai handles them on top, ultimately it's just very pleasant and it's impressive as well, the tightness of the performance in general. I'm glad I had the chance to review it. But thank you very much for watching my review of this track from an act named Jamiroquai titled Space Cowboy, off of the return of the Space Cowboy album, remastered hopefully. You enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and a Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.